First part of the timeline is in a previous video where I talk about the symptoms and the run-up to being admitted to hospital. This is the timeline in hospital. I'm going to look at my notes because it's very confusing for me still, simply because I was in ICU, being in a comatose kind of situation and on heavy drugs. It really messed me up timeline-wise. It's very difficult for me to put everything in order there. But anyway, here we go. So on the 23rd of May, I was admitted to hospital right after the esophageal echo, where they took the images from behind the heart. I still had the IV in. They used that IV to start with the antibiotics. Why stick another one in if there's one there already? Every 4 hours, I was given a new baggie of antibiotics. Every 4 hours, strictly. You eventually get used to it at night, because it's even at night, every 4 hours. What else? On the 5th of June, 2023, last year, the cardiologist did another echo scan from the back of the heart to see if the bacterial growth on the actual wire had gotten any smaller. They were hoping it would get smaller enough that it would be safe to remove in the conventional method. The cardiologist came around and told me that they were going to have to do open heart surgery to remove the pacemaker because of the inherent dangers that were in play and the high risks of the bacterial colony breaking apart and causing more problems like a stroke, getting stuck in the blood somewhere else. The cardiac surgeon came around on the 6th of June, I believe, to explain what was going to happen and why. In the end, I still had the choice of going for the conventional method, which is some sort of sleeve that they put around the pacemaker wire, go into the heart and withdraw it that way. He felt that that was very unsafe and very risky, and that the better option, even though it was far more invasive, was to have open heart surgery. His reasoning was that if they did the extraction via the usual method and anything went wrong and there were complications, he was certain they would not be able to open me up in time to save me. His thought was that it was certainly more invasive doing open heart surgery, but safer, because everything's right in front of him. I'm in the correct operating theater for that kind of procedure if anything were to go wrong. Whereas the regular pacemaker extraction theater doesn't have all that equipment, etc., to open you up straight away. So his recommendation was to do open heart surgery to remove the pacemaker and the wire. Another reason is that I have a hole in my heart pretty close to where the wire sits, and there's a bit of blood flow between the chambers of the heart through that hole. If for whatever reason little bits of that bacteria colony broke off, there's a huge chance it could go through that hole and straight up into my brain, which would cause a stroke or death. So he emphasized the point that he would like to do open heart surgery to make sure that if anything did go wrong, they could fix it there and then. So there's not much choice there. Now, is there? I opted for the open heart surgery. I really felt I didn't have much choice. You may disagree. I don't. So on the next day, the 7th of June, I was taken away for open heart surgery. I was supposed to be in ICU for 2 days. Obviously, the surgery didn't go particularly well because I ended up in ICU from the 8th to the 16th of June. That's 1 day more than a week, 8 days. They installed a temporary pacemaker during the open heart surgery. They didn't want to put any wires inside the heart anymore. They decided to put the nodes and the wires on the outside of the heart, which is, again, an invasive thing, but since you're there already, they thought it would be a better idea, and there's less chance of an infection reoccurring if the wires were on the outside of the heart. The pacemaker is in a completely different place. It's under my breastplate. All they had was the wiring, and that came out of my chest and was hooked up to an external pacemaker. It was a bit freaky, and you've got to watch that you don't damage those wires or pull them somehow, which I suppose isn't too much of a problem because you're so incapacitated and weak, you're not going to be able to do much. On the 29th of June is when they installed the permanent pacemaker. It's placed under my sternum, obviously close enough that it can be removed and replaced easily enough because the battery does run out eventually, and they need to replace the entire thing every 5 and 8 years. Through this whole exercise, every 4 hours I was still getting my antibiotics. I did go into septic shock in ICU, so every 4 hours through this entire hospital stay I got a new bag of antibiotics. 8th of July is when I got discharged from the hospital. I was very pleased that I was getting discharged, but in the same vein, I felt it was maybe a little too soon. I think they should have kept me in the hospital a couple of weeks longer, because I certainly was not able to function very well. I needed help with showering. It was a huge effort to shower. But I was released. On the 8th of July, and I will tell you about the timeline at home in the next video. And by the way, yes, I'm at home, and I'm almost a year later. I'm still not where I was, and I'm still recovering. This is my experience, though. I know of someone who had 5 bypasses all at once, and he's just fine. He's walking around like nothing ever happened. I assume that due to my heart condition, the pre-existing heart condition, that it's been simply a lot more difficult for me to bounce back. And that is so oversimplified, that bounce back phrase. I wasn't fucking bouncing anywhere. And it's not that light. It's a very heavy thing to go through. Like I say, I'm still recovering. I'm still not fully functional. When I say fully functional, I am not able to do the things I was able to do before this whole incident. I still get tired very quickly, and I still battle with my breathing. But that's for the next video. Ciao for now, and see you soon, I hope.